L'ONG Code Blue vient de faire des révélations choquantes.
Allegations of a child sexual abuse in the Central African Republic made against France peacekeepers indeed shocked the whole world by the time they were revealed. Following a research done by Swedish Television SVT, it has been revealed that the victims of such acts, who are mainly children, have been abandoned and have not benefited from the promises made by the UN. But UNICEF defended itself, claiming to have issued medical and psychological care to these children. Let's have a look at a 14-year-old girl, a victim of sexual abuse in Central Africa Republic. And this is what she had to say.
Se trouvait tout comme elle dans un camp de réfugiés au moment des faits.
He said he wanted to marry me. Then he said he would help, support me, and support my mother in the hospital. Yes, a lot. I would have so much wanted to continue this year. Initially, UNICEF said they will make sure the soldier was imprisoned and take care of the mother and baby to help us. But then, nothing. No one came to visit. It was left to us to take care of the child. They just gave us a present.
Well, quite a disturbing story there, and the present in question was a bag of rice, some milk, some sugar, and the equivalent of $20 US. UNICEF defended itself against the charges of neglect, saying, and I quote, "During and after helping gather and report the testimonies, UNICEF focused on the children's well-being, including supporting the provision of medical and psychological care for all those affected." Claims that an investigative panel made of UN member states reported were false. The team from the Swedish Public Television have also documented evidence that the United Nations neglect continues. Paula Donovan is the co-director of AIDS Free World and its Code Blue campaign to end impunity for sexual exploitation and abuse by UN peacekeepers. She joins us now on the morning call. Thank you very much for joining us today on the program. In this report, you said that protecting the world's children has taken a backseat in the instance of peacekeeping to protecting the United Nations reputation. We have just heard one of the victims of peacekeeping sexual abuse and her mother, but what more can you tell us about this revelation?
What happened in the Central African Republic was that the Swedish Public Television network went to the Central African Republic to follow up with the children and find out what exactly they were receiving in terms of support. And the head of the UNICEF office in Central African Republic said, "We can't put you in touch with those children, but be assured that they're in school, they've been reunited with their families, they're taking vocational training courses, they're being fed, they're being housed." And the reporters went on, and within just 2 days they were able to find the children, and they spoke to them, and the children said, "No, it's been almost 3 years since we were first questioned by UNICEF and the High Commission for Human Rights Office, and we're getting no help whatsoever. They've never given us any sort of food or assistance, where it was clear that the children were quite traumatized. None of them were in school." And then the team went on to find a young girl who at the age of 14 had been impregnated by a peacekeeper. UNICEF knew about it, went to visit her once, gave her a bag of rice and some milk and the equivalent of about $20 US, and never visited her again. And she was now the mother of a 1-year-old out of school herself and struggling to survive. So when confronted with this counter reports from the children themselves, UNICEF said, yes, we've got over 200 children that we're trying to protect now who are the victims of UN peacekeeper sexual abuse, And so it looks as though you must have found some of the children who slipped through the cracks, essentially, that there's a gap here and a gap there. And the reality is that this is what happens when an organization attempts to hide something that will do damage to their reputation.
Now, Paula Donovan, 6 months have passed since the setting up of the United Nations High-Level Steering Group on this issue. Why are we not seeing any radical changes?
They're announcing small improvements, but nothing is radical enough. Nothing is the revolution that we were all hoping the new Secretary General would introduce. Small improvements such as they've now promised to change their systems so that people who are fired, who are terminated for sexually abusing someone in a peacekeeping country, won't be able to apply for a job in another part of the UN system. But that isn't in place so far. And then some moderate assistance for victims, to people who come forward and say that they were raped or sexually abused by UN personnel. But it's a voluntary fund, and they haven't received enough contributions to really get it started. But the reality is that the abusers are escaping justice, which is why our Code Blue campaign is suggesting a special court be set up in peacekeeping missions to ensure that those non-military peacekeeping personnel, who make up 50% of all the allegations of sexual abuse reported each year, will have a true investigation conducted, and a real trial will be held to make sure that they're brought to justice.